beneath the sun-baked stones of a temple that tourists had walked over for 100 years. Archaeologists found something that made grown men refuse to keep digging. Rows of small skeletons, stacked, deliberate, arranged with terrifying precision, as if placed by hands that felt nothing at all. For decades, this civilization was taught as a marvel of engineering and art. Golden ornaments, towering pyramids, complex calendars that predicted the stars centuries in advance. Museums praised its beauty. Textbooks called it advanced. But advanced at what cost? Because underneath the beauty, sealed away in chambers no sunlight had touched in 1,000 years, researchers uncovered evidence of something the official history never mentioned. Something buried on purpose. Something forbidden. The bones told a story the monuments were built to hide. And once the lead archaeologist opened that final chamber, she said she wished she hadn't. This is the story of a civilization that looked peaceful from every angle above ground, and utterly monstrous from every angle below it. A civilization praised in classrooms, printed on postcards, admired by millions who had no idea what they were standing on. By the end of this video, you will never look at ancient wonder the same way again. So, how do you bury a truth this dark and keep it buried for 1,000 years? Let's go back to where it began. Picture the civilization at its height. Thousands of years ago, in a valley ringed by mountains, a powerful society built cities so precise that modern engineers still study their stonework in disbelief. Massive walls fit together without mortar. Canals moved water across deserts. Temples rose toward the sky, painted in colors that dazzled anyone who approached. At the center of it all stood the ruling class, priest kings who claimed the gods spoke directly, through them, to the people. These rulers were untouchable, divine, beyond question. For generations, historians believed this civilization thrived through trade, agriculture, and religious devotion. A peaceful society organized around the harvest and the stars. Then came the excavation that changed everything. A team surveying a minor temple complex noticed something odd in ground-penetrating radar. Scans. A chamber that shouldn't have existed, sealed beneath layers of packed earth and false flooring. The kind of construction used specifically to hide something. Local workers refused to continue once the first artifacts emerged. Not out of superstition, out of horror. Inside, sealed behind walls, built to look solid from every angle, lay evidence that contradicted everything written about this culture in modern textbooks. The peaceful farmers, the devoted priests, the harmonious society, living in balance with nature. None of it was the whole truth, because what the rulers practiced behind those walls had nothing to do with harvest, festivals, and everything to do with control through terror. The chamber's entrance had been resealed at least twice throughout the civilization's history, meaning someone, generations later, knew exactly what lay inside and chose to hide it again. And the deeper the team dug, the darker it became. Inside the sealed chamber, archaeologists cataloged over 200 sets of remains. Many were children. Some were bound before death. Isotope analysis on their bones revealed something chilling. These weren't local victims. They had been brought from distant villages, fed differently, raised differently, marked as sacrifices from the moment they were born. Records carved into temple walls, once dismissed as symbolic religious art, took on a new meaning once researchers cross-referenced them with the remains. Glyphs depicting offerings to the sky were not metaphor. They were documentation. Historians now believe the ruling priesthood staged these ceremonies during moments of time crisis, drought, disease, political unrest, using public sacrifice as a tool to remind the population who held power over life and death itself. Then came the detail that redefined the entire discovery. Chemical analysis of ceremonial vessels found near the remains revealed traces of a plant-based sedative, meaning victims may have been conscious, but deliberately weakened, unable to resist. Not out of mercy, out of practicality. A struggling victim ruined the spectacle. Some remains showed healed fractures from years earlier, evidence these individuals had been kept, prepared, sometimes for years, before their final moment arrived. Textile fragments recovered near the remains showed fine to deliberate craftsmanship, ceremonial clothing woven specifically for this purpose, dyed in colors reserved only for the divine. Even the victim's final moments were staged for maximum spectacle, choreographed down to the thread. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't wartime brutality. This was bureaucracy, a structured system, refined over generations, hidden behind some of the most beautiful architecture the ancient world ever produced. The same rulers who commissioned dazzling murals of gods and harvests also commissioned this and made absolutely certain the two were never seen together. For every temple praised in history books as a wonder of devotion, there may be a chamber like this one, still sealed, still waiting, still silent underground. When the findings were published, the response was immediate and divided. Some historians welcomed the discovery as long overdue honesty about a civilization too often romanticized. Others pushed back hard, accusing researchers of tainting a culture's legacy with a single, isolated find. But isolated, it wasn't. Similar chambers have since been identified at 3 additional sites, each hidden using nearly identical construction techniques: false floors, sealed access points, remains bearing the same signs of ritual preparation. This wasn't the work of one rogue temple. It was policy. No ruler from this civilization ever faced justice for what happened in those chambers. They died celebrated, buried in tombs filled with gold, remembered for centuries as wise, godlike leaders. The victims had no names recorded anywhere, no mourning rituals, no monuments. Until now, some researchers argue this silence was deliberate, that later generations, uncomfortable with what their ancestors had built, sealed these chambers not to protect the dead, but to protect the reputation of the living. Modern forensic teams have begun the painstaking work of identifying where these individuals came from, reconstructing faces from skulls buried for 1,000 years, giving silent victims something history denied them: recognition. And this matters today for a reason that goes far beyond archaeology. Every era in human history has produced leaders who justified extraordinary cruelty as necessary, sacred, or simply the will of a higher power. The methods change. The justification rarely does. Studying this civilization isn't just about uncovering the past. It's a warning about how easily unchecked power convinces entire societies that horror is normal, even holy, as long as it's wrapped in enough beauty and tradition to look away from. The temples still stand. Tourists still photograph them at sunset, unaware of what waits beneath their feet. Every civilization wants to be remembered for its beauty, its art, its achievements carved in stone. But history has a way of remembering what we try hardest to bury. This story isn't really about one lost culture in one forgotten valley. It's about power, and what power does when nobody is left to question it. It's about how easily cruelty gets rewritten as necessity, and how silence, generation after generation, can bury a truth almost forever. Almost. Because the ground remembers. The bones remember. And eventually, someone always digs deep enough to find what was hidden. So ask yourself, how many wonders of the ancient world are hiding something we haven't hauled? Yet, how many more chambers, sealed twice over, are still waiting beneath our feet, in places we've already declared safe, in already declared beautiful, already declared understood? If this story left you with that same uneasy feeling, tell us what shocked you most in the comments below. And if you want more forgotten history dragged back into the light, this is the channel where it happens. Subscribe and stay curious. Some truths don't stay buried forever.